Hey guys, it's Holly. So today I wanted to have a look at one of my favorite LEGO Star Wars sets of all time, and that is the 2012 Jabba's Palace set. This is set 9516 and has 717 pieces and really stands the test of time even 10 years on. Now, after I first saw images of Boba Fett's throne room, I just did not like the set that much and actually went out and bought this one used. It's certainly a very pricey set these days, and in fact actually went up with that new set releasing, and I really hope that one day LEGO does do a remake, but for now I'm really glad to have this a part of my collection, so I really wanted to show you guys the set. So here's Jabba's Palace all put together, and this by far is definitely one of my favorite LEGO Star Wars sets of all time. I really feel like overall the design was incredibly complete, and for a set from 2012 as well, this holds up really, really nicely with 2022, 2023 standards. I absolutely love it. So first up we have Chewbacca, and this is one of the original sort of stars of Chewie without any of the eye printing or anything like that, which is really weird sort of looking back because the rest of the minifigure quality in this set make you think that at this time we would have had that newer style of Chewie that we see these days. However, he's definitely the most outdated character, and it's just really interesting to see looking back how much detail they had in the remaining minifigures when this is, the Chewie that we got a couple of years later, which is super easy to swap out of, if you want to make it look extra accurate. But at least for me, as someone who doesn't have this original Chewie, it was an amazing opportunity for me to get him. Next up is Han Solo. Now, I did buy this set used, and unfortunately I realized that the Han Solo that I got in this set doesn't actually have the accurate face print, so I managed to do a little bit of combining of a bunch of different pieces in order to show you guys one of his face prints. So the Han Solo that we got in this set had the reddish brown legs and the old sort of slicked back over hair, but he shares the same torso as a lot of the other sort of fresh out of carbonite or fresh into carbonite Han Solos. The only difference here was the head. Now, according to Bricklink, this is what both of the head prints look like. To me, it is really similar to the newer sort of head print that we got. However, his alternate face is a lot more of a stern expression. Now, this is the head that I was given in my copy of this Jabba's Palace, which definitely isn't accurate. It is only single-sided, so I will have to go and source that out one day. But besides that, this Han Solo and carbonite figure, it's honestly nice that they included it. I don't think it necessarily needed to be included. I think just the Han Solo piece in the carbonite was enough on its own. However, I do appreciate that LEGO did put that extra care and detail in that you could actually have him in this set as well. Next up, we have Bosch, or I really cannot pronounce this name, but I absolutely love the design of this minifigure. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. All of the printing and the detailing, and especially that helmet mode, is fantastic. And then, of course, underneath that helmet is none other than our gorgeous Princess Leia, who has that same face print as she does on the Slave Leia outfit, which is really good to see. And this set also, kindly enough as well, gives you a dark brown ponytail piece that you can swap out if you really want to, but personally, I just much prefer having that helmet on the entire time. Taking off her accessories, you can have a much better look at all of that gorgeous torso and leg printing with the shiny little metallic there on those shoulder pads. And then as you turn her around, there is this little build on the back using a neck bracket, which is really simple. It's just a plate and some binoculars. And if you take that off as well, there is a little bit of back printing underneath. Overall, it is just such a great and overall amazingly detailed minifigure. Next up, we have Ula, who to me is one of the most interesting and cool looking minifigures out of this set. I think it's amazing that we got her, and I definitely don't think we will ever see her again, unfortunately. But overall, her detailing and her printing is absolutely spectacular. As always, I love the hairpiece they use for these creatures' hair. I think it looks fantastic. I love all of the silver detailing on her torso. It's amazing how well the mesh turned out, which I think is definitely going to be a really hard thing for LEGO to do. Her face prints as well look spectacular, and overall I think LEGO has done a fantastic job with her. I love how simple yet easy it is. I'm just really, really glad to have her in my collection. Moving along, and we have Bib Fortuna, and this time around, unlike his original variant, he has a more like pinky flesh tone sort of thing going on, but overall still uses that same headpiece, which I think is really interesting. Now, the one in the original set did come with one of those typical black stiff capes. However, mine was in terrible condition, so I did actually have to swap mine out. But besides that, overall, again, he is really nicely detailed. Unfortunately, has no leg printing, but it's also something that I don't think is entirely necessary for him. And when you take his headpiece off, you can see that terrifying looking facial expression, which is only single-sided. And underneath his cape this time, there is no additional detailing, which is pretty fine in my opinion. You're not going to see it anyway underneath his cape. Moving along, and we've got a Gamorrean guard who overall looks really solid yet again, and is also incredibly close to the ones that we saw in Boba's palace in 2022, which personally I really like, because I feel like it would be really good to build upon this original set with those newer Gamorrean guards. So overall, I'm pretty happy that they look really similar. This mold for his head and like sort of belly piece is fantastic. I absolutely love it. Again, I think LEGO did a fantastic job. It's just a shame that the one I got, unfortunately, is not in the greatest condition in the legs. So those are all of the regular minifigures. However, there are some leftover characters, starting off with Salosius B. Crumb, and the design for this guy is absolutely hilarious. I think he looks so funny and so cute and incredibly as well accurate to how he appears in Star Wars. I love this design. It is super simple. He's just basically a stud on the bottom. It's interesting to think that, I mean, this is LEGO considering just how highly detailed this mold is, but overall it looks fantastic and still fits in with the general sort of LEGO styling, which I absolutely love. I think the designers who made this set did a fantastic job creating this guy. He's amazing, and he's also exclusive to this set. And last but not least is the star of this set, of course, Jabba the Hutt. And I love this mold for this character. It's such a shame that we haven't seen it in almost 10 years now. Like, it is such an absolute waste to me because he looks incredible and is definitely one of the most memorable characters and probably one of the more famous characters from Star Wars that a lot of people would recognize or at least know the name of without even watching the movie. And I love how well this character is done. Now, he is built up in a variety of different sections, so you can pop off his torso there, which is connected by a blue Technic axle rod, and this is all one giant piece, which kindly enough has some plates at the bottom so you can attach him to various sets and things like that, which I'll show you all later. But it's really lovely to see that he's got some printing detailing on his tail as well as his stomach, and overall I think they've done a fantastic job of this Hutt mold. His body as well is fantastic and is overall a pretty hollow piece, but I mean, it works perfectly well. His body just slaps on the top there, and he's got these two removable arms, which one of which luckily does have his little like arm tattoo printing sort of thing, both of which can be moved. You can hold a little bar piece if you wanted to, or stick a stud on the top. This mold for him is absolutely fantastic, and I really hope we get to see a more modern version of Jabba the Hutt, because I'm really interested to see what that looks like if this is the standard that we had in 2012. Now, the first part to this set that you build is this little droid-looking thing, which apparently, at least on Bricklink, is listed as a minifigure called B. Omar Monk, who, honestly, I do not remember at all. So I just sort of place him on the side of this set whenever I'm sort of trying to display it or things like that. Overall, the build is pretty simple. There's really not all that much to it. However, I guess it was a pretty neat inclusion. Then here, of course, is the set itself, and overall this thing is incredibly grand and can actually be expanded upon too. If you manage to get your hands on the incredibly expensive Rancor Pit set, this will actually sit on top of that, which I think is a fantastic feature. I love that it was sort of like a whole modular system that you could buy each year, and I really hope that that's something that they replicate again in the future someday. But overall, this model is incredibly accurate to the way it appears in the film, both from the interior and the exterior, which I think is really incredible. It's also not overly too big, which is something I really appreciate looking back from 2022, because we just don't usually get stuff like that these days. Another great thing about this set is that it can actually be taken apart. You can have this whole like palace section and then the tower. Everything can be separate, which is really neat. Now, there was some controversy about this set back when it released, saying that this rooftop build looked a lot like a mosque, and there was a lot of people that were really unhappy with it, which I can definitely see, but at the end of the day, this is accurate to the movie. I feel like those complaints should be more directed to Lucasfilms and Star Wars, and at least these days as well, Disney, rather than LEGO itself, which is quite unfortunate, and that whole sort of criticism as well is very reflected in the more modern style Boba Fett's palace that we saw in 2022, where it just did not have a roof at all. Now, the first aspect of this set I really want to look at is the exterior, which to me is something that Boba's palace in 2022 just did not get right, and is one of the reasons why I think this set is so great overall. If you look at any pictures of Jabba's palace, whether that be from Return of the Jedi or even the Battlefront games, like this whole thing is reflected so well in such a small, concise set. It's easy to put on a shelf, which I love, and from the exterior can be displayed really nicely, and even from the interior, when you set up all of the minifigures and and such, you get such an amazing scene. Now when you start the set, of course you start off with this tower, which overall is quite skinny, really small, and honestly doesn't utilize that many pieces. It's a pretty quick build, but still turned out what I think at least to be really good. There's a little bit of texture on the model, which I think is fantastic, though I feel like these days it would be really nice, I guess, to have a little bit more using some textured pieces, but for the most part, the whole thing looks really sick. Now at the front you are greeted by this glorious door, which of course has that little tooth evil like entrance port here, which can actually be stuck entirely out using this little Technic rod where you can push the whole thing out so it can stick up and check for people entering and make sure that they're all approved, and it slots into the build of the door really nicely. Overall, it's a pretty sick design using some plates and tiles. It's very simple but very impressive, and it can actually entirely be pulled up as well just by pulling up on this piece here, and the entire door will open, allowing your minifigures to enter Jabba's palace. At the entrance as well, there is this little security camera and blaster system thing, which can swivel, and all of the blasters can rotate a little up and down. On the sides, basically, there's just a bunch of panels, including those little window pieces, and a few exposed sort of modified bricks there with the studs on the side, which is really the only part of texture that you get. And on the left-hand side, there is this archway, which when connected to the remaining of Jabba's palace, creates a nice little archway and entry into his sort of chamber area. The remaining level of the bottom of the tower though is very basic. There's really not that much in there, and honestly neither is there when you move up, as on this first level here, literally all there is a tiny little bottle piece, as well as this open little trunk there. That's really all you can fit. At the very top, there's again the small empty space with some binoculars at the top, and really there's not that much else. On the second level though, at least on the exterior, there is a little bit of a play feature, as when you slide that door up, you can push that bar in and it will lock it into its open position, and then to bring it back down, you can just swing that back and the entire door will drop down. And then lastly, you've got the main attraction, the main component of Jabba's palace itself, which from the exterior is honestly pretty plain. There's not a lot going on here. The real interesting part when it comes to just this section is this inside portion right here. Now on the right hand side there is this giant archway and some Technic pieces and pins so that you can connect the tower, and again that archway will continue into the main portion of Jabba's palace. Now conveniently you can actually pop off the roof, which allows a lot of extra space in order to really get into this section and move things and play around and pose and just have a look at the general set area in total. Now while this section definitely has a lot more going on than the tower, it overall is still pretty empty without any of the minifigures in there. It's literally just pretty much an open space with a couple of things placed on the top. There's a lot that's built into the base play feature wise, but just in terms of overall design, it overall still is pretty basic. There's these tiny little tables here at the front, each with a golden goblet. There's another one of those little buckets, and then we have sort of Jabba's juice there with a frog on the inside. And for the most part, that is really all you get, at least at this front section of the build here. As we back up a bit though, this is where things start to get interesting. So firstly, there is Jabba's platform, which can slide back and forth and really is supposed to be pushed by this little component at the back. If you push that forward, he slides forward, but you can also just sort of grab and push it the way you really please. However, if I take that out, you'll get a better look at one of the play features that is really built into the base of this set. Now, there is this little handle on the side here that you can pull out, and this entire platform will slide away and minifigures can fall through. And while with Jabba's palace on its own, you really can't go very far as you're hitting the floor, this was, again, meant to be combined with the Rancor pit, so if you stuck that on top of this set, minifigures would fall right through and land into the pit with the Rancors, which I think was really cool and very, very, very well thought out and planned for, which I really appreciate sort of looking back at this wave now. But if you're like me and you don't have that set, at least you can stick Jabba on his little platform there using those 4 studs and sticking them to the base of himself. And then there is also a little space for Ula to sit on these 2 jumper plates. At the back, however, there isn't really much going on. There is this tiny little fire and a stovetop attached to that little lever, but really that's the only reason that it's there. I mean, I guess this portion down here can be used for storage if you really want to, but besides that, if you take Jabba's little throne out, there's really not that much going on. Once Jabba's placed back in there though, you can sort of see a little bit better how this whole section works. There are stairs going up either side in order to get to Jabba's platform, but really he's just supposed to sit there standing and staring towering menacingly over quite literally everyone. Personally, I sort of like to have him pushed a little bit more forward, just so that there's not as much empty space at the front and it really fills out the set a little bit better. And then the last component of this set is Han in his carbonite, which really is just sort of tagged along on the side. I'm glad it's included, though it would have been really nice for them to, I guess, sort of complete this whole section a little bit more, just so that it felt a little bit more built in, and then as well, you wouldn't be able to see it sort of sticking out at the front. Though I do like how it's sort of clipped in there, and overall this piece and this mold just looks fantastic. Another neat detail is the little control panel on the side in order for Leia to let Han out of the carbonite, but really there's not that much going on in this area. It just feels like it was there in order to really complete the scene and make this whole thing feel a little bit better. Though you will notice there is a singular stud at the back there, which is pretty neat because it means you can sort of stick Han there if you want to, though he is a little bit off center and sort of hangs out, but at least it's a place for him to be stored and sort of, again, complete this entire scene. Now, while the set overall is quite empty when you really get down into it, I think it works out perfectly fine. I mean, there is a lot of space for you to pose and place minifigures, which is fantastic. And once the minifigures are put in there, the set definitely does feel a little bit more complete. You can place them how you want and really just create a scene and make everything feel quite menacing, which is something that I really like about this set. But at least for me as well, this set is a really great display piece. It looks fantastic from the interior once all the minifigures are placed, and from the exterior as well, looks incredibly accurate to the movies, which is something that, at least for me as an adult collector, that I really appreciate. So there is Jabba's palace, and overall I think this is excellent for display collectors. I mean, back in the day, I can't imagine this would have been great for play, but the minifigure quality and prints are fantastic and I think way ahead of their time. The overall design still holds up as well in 2022 and looks incredibly accurate and is much, much, much better than any of the other Jabba's palaces I've designed, which at the end of the day is the whole reason why I ended up buying the set. With the new Boba's throne room coming out, I looked at that set and it just did not give me what this set does. It wasn't anywhere close, and I ultimately decided that I would much rather spend more money and get a set and design that I really want, rather than settling with something that I overall was not happy with. Not to mention the fact that I care a lot more about this character selection than I do with Boba's throne room. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below and let me know what you guys think about this set, as well as the remade Book of Boba Fett version. And until next time, I'll see you later.